when you see that the physical is nothing but an expression that is projected through the mind, that is also an expression of consciousness itself. And consciousness itself doesn't see itself because it is, it's you. It's you can't see it with the physical eyes. You know, and you can't grasp it because it's you. You're before there was physical, which is just low vibrational matter. Before there was a being to take place in space, there was only space, which is what we call nothing. But it's not nothing. It's an energy that is imperceivable. It's not. It's frictionless. It's so fast, so small, that light can't hit it. There's nothing there to stop it, which is why it's physical in the first place. If it's not physical and it's space, this means it's sort of, yeah, but this means that it's dimensionless. This means that it's more. I shouldn't say dimensionless. I should say this means it doesn't have a barrier, meaning light can't hit it. This means that you can't touch it. If light can't hit it, you can't touch it physically. You can't feel it. You can't. It's sort of like sound, like how light, you can't perceive it. You hear it though. So this is what I'm saying, is consciousness itself can't be seen or felt because the physical and the mind itself aren't sort of, it's really hard to explain, but it's like you can't see yourself or feel yourself. You are it. So from the point of view of the mind, it thinks that it's something other than consciousness. But when you understand that the mind and the body themselves are actually intertwined with consciousness, and that the behavior of consciousness is awareness, this vast knowing of just knowing. Think of everything that you've ever seen or felt. All you fundamentally know is the knowing of it. And then your mind, of course, makes it certain. Meaning, like you know it, but all you know is the knowing of it. And so trying to verify it, like science even says that, on the atomic level, you truly don't touch anything. Right? For every force, there's an equal and opposite reaction. Like, it's two opposing forces in which they never truly touch, because there's something in between those two that is imperceivable that repels to keep everything balanced, equalized. You see what I'm saying? So when I push forward, I'm not actually pushing forward. I push forward on something, and there's another force there to stop me in two different directions. That way, nothing goes off bounds. And it's like, well, what's going on here? And then you sort of see, no, consciousness is that force that's being pushed on, and the force that's pushing. Consciousness is pushing and pulling itself, but here's the thing: is that it's keeping its own self in balance. It's like how science says objects are only space condensed, meaning it's a higher vibrational single-pointed energy that made itself into a dimension. In other words, consciousness was dimensionless. Always has been, always will be. Which is why I say we're God, and we never really were born, or or you end. You always were. But everything besides that dies, meaning it begins and ends, except for the silent witness that creates the experience. So, what I'm trying to say is, it's as though you were dimensionless, and you eventually made yourself. You eventually created a dimension, a place. You created space. By creating space, you created time. And from space and time, you then created physicality, meaning a dimension. And from then, you created something that could exist within that dimension. And from there, you created, of course, something within that dimension, which was, the physical being, the ego, the mind. So I feel as though physical, like the mind, the body, everything that's physical, place, time, space, distance, physicality, the body, the mind, the emotions, all of them, everything, is all intertwined with consciousness, but at the same time, it's all existing inside. Well, that's what I'm saying, is that I think everything is inside of consciousness. So from the point of view of the mind sees consciousness as though it's beyond time and space and it's outside. But it's not. Alright. Rationally, we can say that we're a unified field. That the beings, the physical, and the mind, the sense of self on which you think you are, or which you created, this being, this dot on the unified field, created a sense of self, and it differentiated itself, thus creating an ego, a veiling of consciousness. Which ego isn't like good or bad, by the way. This is just a sense of self. If you didn't have an ego, you would just be an entity. And if you weren't an entity, you would just be a unified field, but you wouldn't have any awareness. Oh yeah. If you want to go towards those terms, but I stayed away from those because I felt as though they were blanketed. I just chalk it up towards ego because the unconscious mind doesn't really have. No, I think it's created. I think it's manifested, meaning like it's created purposely. Meaning like you didn't create it. It was created perfectly. Okay, and then your conscious awareness of that ego is of course, something that is along the lines of intellect and data, and then you wanted to make yourself into a character, so you shape-shifted into that in a sense, and you tried to project this image to the world. That is all you. But everything before that, the ego itself, I think consciousness created that. I think it was perfectly created. Like, an ego was more like a mask that consciousness creates. No, exactly that. Exactly that. Right. But, right. You're, right. And you don't know what is you and what is not you. If
Hey,
you're
Lester, how's
everything.
it going?
It's like, what the fuck am I?
Fucking 8, I think. And that's 7. There's a lot of people in this party. I know. Yeah. I'm playing with fucking, Shadow Ninja.
But that's the way I see it, man,
I'm gonna go join this party again because obviously I'm doing anything, so. Yeah.
if you're this unified field, right, but you're not aware that you're a unified field, this unified field eventually creates, it doesn't have a dimension, meaning it doesn't have a barrier. Yeah, go ahead. Right. 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 This.
I'm reading multiple hostiles in the area. You are free to
Well,
lethal force.
I see it as, because you're self-aware, you can be in any because you can't be, you can be one, like, alright, like when you awaken, you can't go back to sleep. Okay? You can't forget everything that you just experienced. You can't go, oh, this is, you know, oh yeah, right, like, oh, that didn't happen. No, you every single day, everything you do, you just dive into this realm of what you're doing. You're fully immersed all the time, you know, and you're self-aware, and you can make yourself be you can make yourself the doer at the same time the watcher. So you're watching what you're doing, but you aren't focused on you aren't focused on the watching. You aren't focused on the doing. You're focused on the doing 100%. But it's like you created two of you. It's like you created a mirroring of yourself. Meaning, like I said, what's that? No, you're not physically. I'm talking metaphorically, as an example. If you're doing, all right, if you're doing something, right? You're let's say focus on the task. Focus on the task. You aren't worried about you gotta get it done at a certain time. You aren't worried about what's gonna happen if you fail. You aren't worried about what's gonna happen if you succeed or what's the reward. You aren't worried about doing it. You were only doing it, and you were only doing it. Yeah, and it's 100% just doing, right? But because you have self-awareness, you can 100% do that, and then watch yourself do it. 100%. You can do two things at once, but you aren't diverting your energy. Which is why I say consciousness is like in a superposition, in which consciousness has infinite mind. Right. Yeah. Yep. Right. But drifting off where? Cause no, I want to know. Yeah. All right. So you're. Because from the point of view of the mind, you're somewhere. From the point of the consciousness, you're. If you're everything you want to, if you're everything in every place, where are you? If you're everything, if you're space and objects, where are you? This is my point. Where? No. What I'm saying is your body may be taking place physically, meaning your body's like an avatar in which it does things, and you're doing it. But where are you? Where's the real you? That's what I'm saying. Is the real you? Your ego dissolves into the act. You aren't going, oh, I'm doing it, and no, it's being done. But the I goes away for that moment because you're so involved in it. The I, there is no I, there's no person putting the bricks. There's simply you, and there's only you. There isn't a person anymore doing this. It's you. And it's really hard to explain without, like, because I would have to eliminate all reference points, but then it wouldn't make any sense for the rational mind. But it's as though, you know, you are laying bricks, and you're creating a structure with these bricks, and it's taking place inside you, which is the environment that you're doing it in. So where are you? You see what I'm saying? So from the point of view of the rational mind, it's crazy, because it's like, well, where are you? How does consciousness create physicality? It doesn't. It divides itself. How does it divide itself? It would be this dimensionless essence, infinite blanket, which isn't even a blanket, and it folds into itself. And it creates layers of itself. When it folds into itself, it makes itself finite, physical, temporary. And it goes, okay, I'm a thing. You've created a thing. But in order for you to even create the thing, you would have to create a place. There's an even bigger thing. and so consciousness, I believe, is this dimensionless thing that is the only thing that exists. And so it creates multiplicity. But from the point of view of consciousness, there's nothing separate from it. So it's connected to everything. It is everything. So from the point of view of the mind, there's reference points. That's a tree, that's a dog, that's the ground, that's the roots, that's each leaf. Leaf number 1, that's leaf number 2. A house, windows. And then there's me. But when you realize I'm a part of this. Go ahead. I got into it. No, your knowing of it doesn't. Your knowing of it doesn't do much. It gives you info, but it doesn't do much, because when you understand that your physical body is intertwined with consciousness, meaning, like, I don't believe that the body produces consciousness. I believe that the body is an extreme amount of layering of consciousness. I believe it's projected through the mind, but I believe that this essence, well, here's what I'm saying, is rationally, I think that this consciousness, it's what? If it's assigned? Like if, are you talking about like soul? Like it's being, because then we still have duality though, man. You know what I mean? And that's the whole thing, is because I believe that it's all one energy, and every single energy that is appearing to be different, like fire, air, water, I think that they're all the same, but they've diverted themselves. Do you know what I mean? So they all came from one thing, and that one thing created division into itself, giving itself the illusion that it was separate from everything, thus creating a dimension. Which is why I say we're all inside consciousness, but at the same time we're it. So there isn't my consciousness and then there's yours. No, there's consciousness and then there's my illusion of, oh, it is mine. Meaning the consciousness creates its own character, and that character that consciousness creates is a veiling of itself, a section. And when it looks through that section, what? A wolf of consciousness? What does that mean? Right. I see what you're saying. Yep. And more importantly, you can't experience what I'm experiencing. Right. 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 Right.
I'm reading multiple hostiles in the area. You are free to exercise lethal force.
No, I don't think you're supposed to do that. Here's the way I see it. Is there isn't a me and you. All right, this is gonna get weird, but there isn't a me and you. There's one thing here, and it's using. I shouldn't even say using, but there's one thing here. Consciousness. There's one thing here. This unified field. All right? It's speaking to itself. It's even deeper than that, because thinking implies that consciousness needs to think. There's nothing it has to think. That's something of the mind, which is another. When I say veiling, I don't mean like an illusion. No, by veiling I mean like a division of itself, a layering of itself that it created. Think of a blanket, this infinite blanket that that curved into itself. So you fold the blanket, right, halfway. That same blanket, and you fold it, and you fold it half. Well, no, but this is like physical. This is how you create physical. Is you take something that is imperceivable, and it crystallized itself, a higher vibrational energy that was everywhere, slowed itself down, curved in on itself, and made itself physical. Right? It's really weird, but it's like because I'm looking at this tree here, this picture of a tree, but I see the branches, right, and the vines, and the way as it sprouts out, it's starting to bend in different directions, different places. Forces are interacting with the physical, and they're making it bend into itself. So from the point of view of the what I'm trying to get at is there's from my point of view, this is the way I see it in my mind, is there's one thing here, consciousness, and it's speaking to itself. But in order for it to even speak to itself, it would create a division in itself. So from the point of view of like my mind, there's my consciousness. From you, there's your consciousness. The reality, there's like this unified field, and we're on it, and we're the unified field, but we divided ourselves to make ourselves multiple. So what appears to be two is actually taking place in one. And we're that one, but at the same time, how come I can't see what you're seeing on your screen, really, and you can't see what I'm seeing? How come I can't experience what you're experiencing? That's because consciousness created a physical barrier for it to experience multiplicity at the same time. So you can go out. Oh, right. Can you unveil and be and experience all? I see it as and that's actually a good question. You know, is the real question is, would you? You know, like would you want to experience 3 lives, like 3 separate lives at the same time? That's really what you're asking, is 3 separate lives at the same time. It would be right. And that's what this is. That's exactly what this is right now. That's why I'm one consciousness, and we're still consciousness, but I'm like a separate thing, and you're a separate one. Meaning, like, we have connections, and we're connected to each other, but like, we're fundamentally different, which is why we're different and we're unique. And you know what I mean? And we can process things differently. We have different likes, different interests, you know, even aware of different things. 2 different eyes, 2 different point of views, same consciousness, 2 different positions on that same field, right? We both create filters, which is why I think that when we die, I believe that is when we go back to being that consciousness that is everything. Because if you're consciousness and you're that, right, and if you're everything, you don't go anywhere. You don't do anything, because you're everything already. You see what I mean? It's really hard to explain, but it's like when the player dies, the player goes back to being the game. And when it goes back to being the game, where is it? Where's the player? where do you go? What do? You don't do anything. So what do? You veil yourself. You literally step down. You step down from your infinite power, and you go, okay, I'm just a finite being in this finite world. Things are gonna end. Things are gonna start. Things are gonna end. And I have to go through it. You do you prestige? That's a great question, and I don't really have, you know, you know. People, dude, nah, you're right. You're right. So that's what I'm saying, though, man. Is you know, a part of me is like, oh my God, you know, that's awesome. You know, you go back to being that consciousness that's infinite and everywhere. But then you go, oh my God, wait a minute. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. Yeah, yep. Right. Right, right, right. Right, and which is I laugh at that. I laugh at that. But you're not supposed to disrupt them. You're supposed to leave them asleep. Meaning, you know what I mean? That's sort of how it works. Yeah, many things. Yeah. No, time isn't linear. Right. No. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Right. Yeah. Right. And here's the crazy part. Here's the crazy part is I once again I see it as though it's this one consciousness. Doesn't have anything to do, it doesn't have anything. It's just going to expand. One consciousness. This is just another theory. I played around with it. One character. It's basically it's as though you're one character, but you created like infinite numbers of characters inside of yourself, and you made yourself into like a bunch of different things, and you're doing it at the same time. So to put it into the perspective of the mind, I'm you, and I'm speaking back to me, but I'm using a completely different thing, a completely different mindset, a completely different shift in perspective. So like I'm you, but from a completely different shift in the field. So you're me, and I'm you, and we're all this thing. Because if you were to strip away our knowledge, strip away our body, strip away our memory, if you wiped away the memory, then it's all, the hardware is gone, the software is gone, and you strip everything away, even the awareness, everything. You just go back to this essence, the source code. Realize